What if your quiet season was actually your preparation season? What if the silence in your life wasn't absence, but strategy? There comes a moment in every woman's story where the waiting becomes purpose and the pain becomes positioning. Esther didn't ask for the crown. She didn't dream of being a queen. She was an orphan girl, raised in exile, invisible to society but not invisible to God. And when the time came, He called her out of the shadows, not for comfort, not for applause, but for a divine appointment that would shake an entire kingdom. Maybe, just maybe, your moment is coming too. Welcome to Biblical Stories, where ancient lives still speak into modern hearts. Here, we dive deep, not just into what happened, but into what it means. We bring the Bible close, personal, and alive. If you've ever felt small, overlooked, or unsure of your calling, you're in the right place. Because God often chooses the least likely to do the most powerful. And today, we're walking with Esther, not the glamorous queen, but the hidden girl behind the palace doors, the one God trusted with a kingdom-saving mission. Let's see what made her story so unforgettable, and how yours might echo it. Esther's story doesn't begin with royalty. It begins with loss. Her parents were gone. Her people were foreigners. Her name, Hadassah, meant myrtle tree, a plant that grows low but carries fragrance when crushed. Fitting, isn't it? Because her life was about to be pressed and pruned. She was raised by her cousin Mordecai, a man of faith and wisdom, who taught her how to stand tall in a world designed to keep her low. She didn't grow up thinking she was important. But God had already written her name into the history of nations. And that's the beauty of divine callings. They don't need your permission, only your obedience. When the king's first queen was dismissed, the kingdom launched a search, not for beauty, but for someone who could be molded to fit the royal mold. Esther was taken, along with many others, to the palace. She didn't volunteer. She was chosen, in a system that gave her no choice. But here's the miracle: even in systems of injustice, God can position His daughters with precision. Esther found favor, first with the eunuch who oversaw the women, then with the king himself. But it wasn't about charm. It was about God's fingerprints guiding each step. Because favor isn't random, it's often the whisper of destiny knocking on your door. For a year, Esther underwent beauty treatments. Oils, spices, perfumes. On the surface, it looked like pampering. But maybe it was spiritual too. Maybe it was a season of inward preparation wrapped in outward rituals. How often do we look at our waiting seasons as wasted time? But what if God is refining us for rooms we haven't stepped into yet? Esther didn't rush the process. She listened. She waited. She honored the moment. Because those who carry purpose must first carry patience. And in every hidden season, God is developing the character that can carry the crown. Esther becomes queen, but her heart doesn't forget her people. She could have blended in, enjoyed the luxuries, and kept quiet. But divine appointments don't let you stay comfortable. When Haman, the king's advisor, plots to destroy the Jews, Mordecai sends a message: perhaps you were born for such a time as this. And with those words, everything shifts. Because calling isn't about convenience, it's about courage. Esther stands at a crossroads. Speak up and risk her life, or stay silent and risk her soul. Every woman called by God eventually comes to this moment. What will you do with the position He gave you? Her response wasn't immediate. Esther asked her people to fast with her for 3 days. No quick decisions. No impulsive heroics. She went to God first. That's the kind of leadership that changes history. Not loud, but loyal. Not reckless, but reverent. When she finally approached the king, she broke protocol. She risked death. But heaven was watching. The king extended his golden scepter. The door was open. And with it, a woman's voice was about to redirect a nation's fate. God doesn't just need warriors, He needs women who pray, who wait, and who walk into rooms with holy boldness. She didn't expose Haman immediately. She invited the king and Haman to a banquet. Then another. Strategy, timing, discernment. Esther was walking by wisdom. She knew when to speak, and when to hold the silence. That's something many of us still learn. Not every moment is the moment. But when the right time comes, your words can break chains. At the second banquet, She finally reveals the plot. The king is furious. Justice comes swiftly. But make no mistake, it wasn't just Esther's voice that saved her people. It was her obedience, her posture, her prayer. Deliverance was born in quiet surrender. The decree of death was reversed. The Jewish people celebrated. Esther's name was etched in their memories forever. But what mattered more than her fame was her faithfulness. She wasn't perfect. She didn't come from privilege. But she showed up when it counted. That's the kind of woman God still uses, ordinary on the outside, but surrendered on the inside. You don't need a crown to be chosen. You just need a yes. Your story, like Esther's, might begin in silence, but if you let God lead, it will end in deliverance, legacy, and purpose far beyond your imagination. So here's the truth. You were made for more than survival. You were born for a purpose. It might not look grand. It might not come with a title. But your faith, your voice, your prayers, they matter. You don't have to force your way into your calling. Just like Esther, trust the process. Wait with wisdom. Move with courage. Speak when God says now. And never underestimate what one surrendered heart can do. Because in the hands of God, your ordinary becomes extraordinary. Stay with us, because the second half of Esther's story, and yours, is still unfolding. After the victory, Esther didn't disappear back into comfort. She remained in position, not for fame, but for stewardship. Purpose doesn't end when the battle is over. Often, that's when the real work begins. She secured letters to protect her people, to establish justice, to ensure that the pain they had endured would not repeat. That's the sign of someone truly called. They don't just fight for themselves, they fight for the generations after them. Esther didn't just survive the palace. She redefined what power looked like when surrendered to heaven's agenda. And that power still lives in women today. Let's pause and get personal. Maybe your story doesn't look like Esther's, but you know what it's like to be hidden, to feel unseen, to be placed in situations you didn't choose, to be called to roles that scare you. But here's the thing, God specializes in using the unqualified. You don't need a perfect past to walk into a powerful future. What Esther teaches us is that every closed door, every silent year, every painful detour was part of the preparation. When God's timing collides with your obedience, miracles happen. You might not feel ready, but you don't have to be. Just willing. Maybe you're in that in-between place. Not where you were, but not yet where you're going. That's okay. Esther spent years being prepared. Her story is not a sprint, it's a slow unfolding. And slow doesn't mean stuck. It means sacred. You're not late. You're not behind. You're being readied. The crushing, the quiet, the closed doors, they all matter. God is not wasting your tears. He's gathering them, redeeming them, turning them into strength. Just like myrtle releases its fragrance when crushed, you too will bloom under pressure. And when your moment comes, you'll see, it was worth every silent step. Esther's life shows us that influence is not about volume, it's about presence. She didn't need to shout to be heard. She didn't need to push to be chosen. She carried herself with grace, discernment, and faith. And that quiet strength changed the course of history. In a world that tells women to be louder, stronger, more visible, Esther reminds us that spiritual power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, waits, and watches for the right moment. Your influence is not tied to your platform. It's tied to your posture. The way you pray. The way you lead in silence. The way you stay faithful when no one is watching. Maybe you're in a palace you never asked to enter. A job, a relationship, a city, a season that feels unfamiliar. It can feel overwhelming. But like Esther, you didn't arrive there by accident. There's divine purpose hidden in the details. Even if you didn't choose it, God is choosing to use it. What if that place of discomfort becomes the place of your greatest impact? Don't run from it. Don't shrink. Don't dismiss your influence just because it looks different than someone else's. Your palace may not have gold, but it has a gate. And someone is waiting for you to speak up, to step in, to rise. When Esther walked into the king's presence uninvited, she didn't know the outcome. She didn't have a guarantee. All she had was trust. Faith doesn't mean certainty, It means surrender. Esther teaches us that you can be afraid and still be faithful. You can be uncertain and still move forward. You can be trembling and still be chosen. So if you're waiting for perfect peace before you obey, you might miss your moment. Sometimes faith is walking into the unknown, dressed in prayer and wrapped in grace, trusting that if God sent you, He'll sustain you. What legacy are you building? Esther didn't just save lives, she wrote a new future for her people. Her courage opened doors for generations. Your obedience today could be the answer to someone else's prayer tomorrow. That conversation you've been avoiding, that small step of faith, that quiet yes in your spirit, it matters. Your life carries weight. Heaven is watching. The world may never know your name the way it knows Esther's, but your impact is no less eternal. God doesn't measure greatness by fame, but by faithfulness. And your faithfulness is shaping a story bigger than you know. Esther reminds us that women of purpose don't wait for permission, they wait on God. They don't chase platforms, they chase presence. They don't live for approval, they live for alignment. And when the time comes, they rise. Not because they're fearless, but because they know who holds the future. Esther's strength wasn't in her crown, it was in her calling. And the same is true for you. You may feel unready, unworthy, unseen. But God sees. God chooses. God calls. And He equips those He calls. If you've ever wondered, why me? Remember, you were born for such a time as this. Let this be your reminder. Your story isn't over. You are not behind. You are not too late. Just like Esther, you were placed here on purpose, with purpose, for purpose. The path may be long, but God is faithful. He still writes beauty from ashes. He still brings victory from surrender. And He still calls women to rise, for families, for justice, for healing, for hope. You don't need a crown to carry kingdom authority. You just need a heart that says yes. So, take courage. Walk boldly. Speak truth. And know, heaven is backing you every step of the way. If this story stirred something in your soul, pause and let it settle. You don't have to rush. Just whisper your yes to God, right where you are. And when you're ready, share this message with a woman who needs it. Someone who's questioning her voice, her worth, her timing. Remind her, she is not forgotten. She is not late. She is being prepared. We believe in stories that heal, empower, and awaken purpose. So stay with us. More voices are rising. More women are answering the call. And your journey, just like Esther's, is only beginning.